Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to the Launchpad meetup hosted by Rocketman. What a week. I know a lot of you all were at JNUC. That's what we're going to be focused on and talking about during this session. We have a number of key items that we saw at JNUC that we want to discuss, but there's going to be a lot of things that, we're in between the lines at JNUC. And so we're also looking for a good collaborative session. So anything that might have come up at JNUC that you want to talk about, we will have the opportunity to discuss that here in this meetup. If you met us at JNUC and that's how you found your way into this meetup today, thank you so much for making JNUC worth it to us. So going out there and finding more people to add to this meetup is amazing. That was one of our goals. Thanks for helping that come true. We do have plenty to get into for this meetup. So I think we'll go ahead and continue on to the keynote presentation that's going to be hosted by three of our Rocketman engineers. So the task was really, okay, what are three things that we saw, talking about JNUC, as you saw, would take a week. So we've narrowed it down to a couple topics that were kind of headlines at JNUC or something very interesting. So I will turn it over to Hugo, Chris Schasse, and Chad Lawson to go ahead with the keynote presentation.
Okay.
I thought we were pausing for the spotlights, but yeah.
Yeah, we're waiting. We're waiting for the answer, Chris.
All right. So we sent out a survey to see what your favorite presentations are. This was partly because we wanted to see what people in the community liked. It was also partly because almost no one at Rocketman had any time to see any sessions this year. The top voted presentations that we found it's going to be Superman 3 by Kevin White. That was the top one, which is no surprise. App Auto Patch, Hands-Off Application Updates by Andrew Spokes and Robert Schrader. And then Flawless MDM Communication by Isaac and Patrick. I think, Isaac, you're on this call. I think I just saw you in the comments. So check out these presentations in the follow-up resources that we linked earlier. We have the links to those. The presentations are available for streaming now if you had a login to JNUC. If you don't have a login to JNUC, they're not going to be released for probably a couple more months, and then they'll be on YouTube.
We'd be remiss if we didn't remind everyone that Dan Lawrence also had a presentation that might not have polled as top three, but it's definitely top three in our hearts. So Dan Lawrence, feel free to share a link to your presentation as well.
Oh!
We do have that linked in the follow-up resources as well, also Perfect. On this slide. So this is a shout out to anyone at Launchpad that has presented or has been part of our Launchpad community in the past that presented this year. Next, we're going to talk about blueprints, which is actually me again. So Jamf released this new feature during the keynote. That was very exciting. And we're going to talk through kind of what it was and what was shown. So first off, they showed this example of creating passcode policies, which looked very similar to configuration profiles. So it just shows setting up a passcode policy, being able to also do it in conjunction with other things. So they showed being able to set up disk encryption along with the passcode policy. So I just kind of wanted to give you an overview of what all of this looked like. And then give you some thoughts on what we saw in this. So with blueprints, the idea sounded very exciting. What we actually saw in the demo was, I don't want to say underwhelming. It looked very similar to what we can already do with configuration profiles. But there was a couple things they said that I wanted to talk about. First of all, they really hammered on declarative device management with this and how it's all built around DDM. We also saw that you could combine two things into a single profile, which you can do through a configuration profile. So I guess that's not really that different. But I think the idea of calling it blueprints makes us think maybe in the future we'll be able to combine policies and Mac App Store apps and things outside of configuration profiles into this. So I think that's the overall vision. How that is actually going to be implemented will be interesting because it's going to be kind of hard to combine policies, which utilize the Jamf agent, with configuration profiles or this new type of configuration profile, which uses the MDM profile. So that's my first takeaway is I see there's kind of a larger vision for this, and we'll see how it's actually implemented in the next couple years. A second thing was a conversation I had with someone at lunch at JNUC, which totally a rumor. I'm not sure if this is true, but it is very interesting. Talking about how what they're actually doing is setting up a different framework that's using a separate server to do all of these DDM features. And the thought we were talking about was that we think Jamf's going in a direction where they're essentially setting up a separate server inside of Jamf Pro to kind of start migrating some of these new tools over to, because they might be hitting the limits of what they can do with Tomcat. And they'll be setting up a new server, and this is essentially acting as an iframe inside a Jamf server. So that's kind of my takeaway from this, without being able to verify much of that information at all.
And
but I think
Hugo
what we're
said,
seeing, yeah, go
Hugo
ahead.
said we weren't going to have any Jamf rumors here, and that sounds like a very solid Jamf rumor. So thank you.
I never agreed to no Jamf rumors.
Oh,
but
those are Apple rumors. Just to be clear here.
yeah. But I think what we're seeing here is Jamf trying to take this like product they built years ago, still supporting it while adding some of these new features that maybe don't fit into that overall model, while still being able to support all the old architecture and the old model they used to have. But more on that later. I'll hand it off to the next person.
That'd be
Chad
GPT.
GPT.
Oddly, I got assigned to the AI related thing. Hugo, I'll just have you slowly advance through this. I did not have as clean of a slides as Chris did when it came to capturing, because it included the closed captioning and I could not turn it off at the time. And rather than remake the slides, I continued. So go ahead and slowly continue through these. But the one of the notes they came in, it was about an hour into the keynote, was the discussion of this implementation of this new AI feature in all of the front ends for Jamf, whether it be Jamf Pro, Jamf Protect, etc. The two that we will see in here and the two they demoed are Jamf Pro that we're currently looking at, as well as Jamf Protect. And in this one, they're the demo in that last slide, this slide, and I think the next one is, hey, you know what? Can you show me how to make an advanced search? And then it gives you all the steps for it. And then the line you can see here, actually, can you do it for me? And then it creates a pie chart of the information that was requested. It creates the advanced search you were looking for. And as you can see, even goes ahead and creates it and then provides a link to it and the information on it. So you can just click and go directly to it. Similarly, the next one then does it for the idea of creating a managed software update. And on this slide, it then not only shows the creation of that policy, but then you can shows the information being shown within Jamf Pro of how it's progressing and how it's going. And then the next couple of slides then show the same type of thing using Jamf Protect and looking for particular threats. Now, these were the two that they provided. One of the key points to this was right now it is strictly in beta. You can sign up for the beta where you would get access to their demo instance, meaning, and it was emphasized that it would not be working off of your data. So you can't, as of right now, we do not have the opportunity to try this out with our information. But if you want to see this feature in place, yeah, I like the, what's the worst that could happen? Yeah, at least it doesn't like, hey, can you delete all my advanced searches, right? But yeah, there's going to be interesting, this AI space, whether you love it or hate it. My key takeaway, by the way, from that was she said early on that it was always going to be the most up-to-date information. And for those of us who have been around since the first days of Jamf Nation, remember at the beginning when it was so much more powerful than any other web knowledge base out there, because it had the most up-to-date information. But now if I search for how to do a particular thing in Jamf Nation, I might find an article from 10 years ago, and that doesn't work anymore. So the promise, the hope, the expectation that the AI will always be looking at the most up-to-date information is promising. And with that, yes, I will hand off to Hugo for, I think it was Hugo that's handling
Oh,
self-service.
right. Yep. Yeah. So this is kind of glossed over in the JNUC presentation, but they're adding what's called Self-Service Plus. And essentially, right, over the years, Jamf's been adding more and more with Mac app installers, with the updates, with Jamf Protect. And so this is definitely a Jamf-centric notification center, and they're going to be removing all those excess notifications. I don't know if anyone here has used app installers, but I know we have in many of the clients' environments that we manage, and one of the biggest complaints from end users is that they're just getting a stack of notifications in the top corner, right? So everything's creating a notification. This app needs to update, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When you plug in a USB, if you have USB restrictions through Jamf Protect, you get another pop-up, right, blocking it. And then macOS updates as well, you're getting another notification. So I think this is a nice quality of life improvement for us as well as the end users from Jamf. So now they're going to move all these notifications into a single spot. So they didn't really detail that very well in the whatever the JNUC the Tuesday presentation, but I just wanted to touch on that because they just glossed right over it.
In the meantime, Hugo, you know about the suppress manage login notifications, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and I think we talked about this last month or the month before, but they have, you know, global notification settings for Mac app installers and stuff like that. So it is manageable, but just you know, thank you for that, Dan. But just moving them into self-service outside of the Apple ecosystem is nice too, because another thing is on the inverse side, right? If you have, you know, multiple monitors hooked up or you're sharing your screen in certain ways, you won't get those notifications. So this is also guaranteeing that end users receive those notifications. Next is a really big one for anybody that's had to apply security compliance within their environment. They know how difficult it has been over the years. So in the past, right, we had custom workflows. We had to make multiple policies containing multiple scripts. We had to make multiple extension attributes for each benchmark. And then we had to putplists on the device to recognize what is on and what is off and if it's applied. And then we needed more policies with more scripts to create, and then extension attributes built into smart groups so that we could scope those policies and scripts to remediate. I mean, like 4 years ago, it was much more of a hot mess to do macOS security compliance. And then comes in the macOS security compliance project. We have the link here. The links are also going to be in the shared resources Chris mentioned. But this was built by a conglomerate of people from one from the MSP, a couple guys from the government. You know, I know John Mallman from Mac Admins Foundation, he participated in this as well. And this is a super viable option. We use it right now. I recommend everyone uses it. And the best part about the Jamf Compliance Editor, right, it's a standalone app. So if you have an internal environment that doesn't touch the internet, right, this is very viable. You can use this if you're in the government, et cetera. But what the beautiful thing about this is they took everything from the macOS security compliance, and coming up in the future is we're going to be able to implement this within Jamf Pro without using any external resources. So they didn't tell you exactly what the available templates are going to be for this, but we can expect CIS, NIST, BIS-STIG, CMMC, and CNSSI. And these are all different classifications for levels of security within governmental organizations, whether it's internal government only or, you know, contractor, citizen-facing stuff. So I believe all these options we should expect, especially as Jamf now has state ramp and they're moving into FedRAMP, hopefully within the next 5 years. I can only imagine that this is going to become more and more robust. They did state this will be available for macOS Sequoia or later, and we should expect iOS and iPadOS sometime next year. This will probably come out end of year 2024, if not very early 2025. And with that, I hand it off to Chris.
Yep. Talking about Platform SSO, and I don't actually have any other slides for this. I do have a link in the resources blog to a presentation that Sean Rabbit did on Platform SSO. Unfortunately, it's only available to people that have login for JNUC 2024. But that gives a lot of information. Platform SSO has been getting built out a lot. I know they announced some pretty big changes at WWDC last year, especially with like being able to do it with File Vault. I don't think we're at this point yet where we can use like our Azure or Okta login to unlock File Vault. But this is a very exciting feature that we're looking very forward to, and promise in the next couple months or so, we're going to do a bigger presentation on the features of what you can do with Platform SSO with the providers that have built this out so far. With that, I'll turn it back to the next slide, and that's going to be Chad Lawson.
If you know me, you know I love automation and no-code, low-code solutions. So I had to go and see a presentation by Howard Griffith. It's a senior systems manager at University of Texas at Austin. His presentation, he was calling, as you can see here, Jamf API command line tool. The idea was that one of the challenges, and I've done a presentation here at Launchpad on this concept, and I love also my esoteric and our arcane topics. But whenever we do shell scripting through Jamf, a couple of the things that have been brought up in terms of security concerns, it's always been a little bit of security through obscurity. When you pass in parameters, anybody who knows what they're doing on a Mac can bring up the terminal and can watch when a Jamf policy script runs and see all the parameters passed to it, including credentials. Anybody can copy the script that's running, which if it contains hard-coded credentials. So one of the concepts, one of the ideas that has been floated by complete crackpots, including myself and Howard, is what if we offload some of that work to a no-code, low-code solution, whether it be an Amazon Lambda function. I tend to use Make, formerly known as Integromat, Zapier, etc. He shows the idea of creating multiple UUIDs, and on the next slide and in our blog, I have a link to his GitHub on it, and it shows some sample code. But the concept demonstrated here is that he creates three different tokens, three different API clients in Jamf with different levels of access, and therefore they each get, through his generation, this concept of a authenticated client token key, and it is that key within the script that is then sent to the Lambda function, whatever. And yes, it is still security through obscurity to a certain extent, because now you have to know what information needs to be sent to the thing and what it can do. But the idea is that we're taking all of that credentials out of the hands of something somebody can immediately get to, and making it a little more difficult. Now they can't see the code that pulls the information. They can't see the API calls. They can't see the sed and awk commands that gather information back. All of that is being done offsite, and by giving each of these scripts, devices, concepts, these API tokens, their own set of permissions, you're also further dialing in potential sorts of damage. Like I said, I gave this link at nearly the last minute to Caleb, so it may not be getting added into our blog post until after the call. But take a look at his GitHub page for more information. Like I said, it is a bit esoteric, I guess is the best word I keep wanting to come up with, but it's a really interesting idea, at least to move forward the discussion of what information we are pulling from the API and how we're doing it without exposing credentials along the way.
Cool. I guess it's about that time. People are dropping off like flies at this point, so we might as well do an official goodbye. If you don't know us, we are Rocketman Tech. We help people make their Jamf servers better. So if you're interested in any of our services, please contact us. We host these meetups every month. The next one's in November, so please check that out. You can also check out our website to see all the presentations that we have available. Right now, we only have the next 2 planned out because we kind of go through this cycle of we kind of start planning all the presentations for next year around this time. So we'll be populating those out pretty soon. And if you're someone that has a really cool topic you want to present on, we'll be, reach out to us, let us know, and we'll put that into the long list of presentations we're going to go through to break out the 2025 year. With that, thanks so much for joining, and have a great rest of your Friday.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for joining us today. We have new episodes on the first Friday of every month. If you'd like to join our session live, visit the link in the description to get on our mailing list. And if you're looking to get the most out of your Jamf server, visit rocketman.tech to set up a meeting with one of our Jamf experts. That's rocketman.tech.